This is the tale of an ordinary man who had everything.
Barker, his name was. Benjamin Barker.
Until a man of power stole his freedom, destroyed his family, and banished him.
May the Lord have mercy on your soul.
For life. And in his sorrow, a new man was born.
15 years dreaming I might come home to a wife and child.
Benjamin Barker.
Not Barker. Sweeney Todd now. And he will have his revenge. Where's my wife?
She's gone. And he's got your daughter.
Judge Turpin.
You've got to leave this all behind you now.
No. These are desperate times. And desperate measures are called for.
All right! You, sir? No one's in the chair. Come on. Sweeney's waiting. I want you bleeders. You, sir! Two, sir. Welcome to the grave. I will have vengeance. I will have salvation.
I can guarantee the closest shave you will ever know.
May the good Lord smile on you.
You're pocket mad.
The years no doubt have changed me. At last, my arm is complete again.
That's all very well. But what are we going to do about him?
Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of Mooncasting, the show where we review anything and everything that is somehow in the DreamWorks library. I'm your host, as always, Ryan Johnson. Joining me again is Bailey Hefferman.
Hello! It's so great to be here again.
And today, we are doing a very special episode of the show on the 2007 musical classic Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Now, I do this thing with both this show and the main series, The Happiest Cast on Earth, where after somebody is a guest on the show, they get about 3 titles, whether they be Disney for Happiest Cast on Earth or DreamWorks for this show, where if our Wheel of Names selects it, they get automatic first dibs. And I creatively call these first dibs. And Bailey has chosen one of her first dibs to be Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. So Bailey, I have to ask the question, why Sweeney Todd?
I really love that movie. I love that musical. Yeah, it's just something that it's like so intriguing in a way that you can't look away. It's one of my favorite repeats, especially in the spooky season. So,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I also really, really enjoy Sweeney Todd, this movie in particular. I am unfortunate enough to not ever see a live production of the musical, although that's definitely on the bucket list at some point in time. But I do really enjoy this movie, even though I have some issues with it, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But the second the Wheel of Names selected this, I squealed with joy in terms of covering it, and also remembered, oh yeah, this is one of Bailey's first dibs, so...
yes, I'm very excited to get to discussing it.
All right. So, a little bit of background. Obviously, this movie is based off of the Broadway musical of the same name from famous composer and songwriter Stephen Sondheim. And it's also based off of the old Penny Dreadful story of the Sweeney Todd, who throughout every single iteration, I've figured this out recently, has basically remained exactly the same, with the ever so minor of details. Like he's always been a barber who would kill people when they come up for a shave. He always had the little chair contraption, and he would always be have their bodies be turned into meat pies through Mrs. Lovett. So it's interesting how the more things change, in some cases, they always remain the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another interesting note that I learned a few years ago, this isn't exactly the very first film adaptation of Sweeney Todd. Back in the 1930s, so decades before the musical, there was an adaptation of the old story, also called Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And appropriately enough, the guy playing Sweeney Todd was named, I kid you not, Todd Slaughter.
Oh, that's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, got the part just on the name.
hmm
Well, I learned, I think it was the last time I watched this movie with my fiance. You know, we got into talking about it because this is also his favorite musical of all time. And we got to talking about it and we're like, where does Sweeney come from? Like that's just such an interesting name. Like what is this? And it's actually like that means barber. So they're referring to him as I guess his name in theory is Todd, and they're just referring to him like as the barber Todd, but he's like Sweeney Todd because that was another name for a barber at that time, which I found to be quite interesting.
Yeah, I did not know that. That's a
Yeah.
very interesting fact indeed. And I figured let's just go ahead and jump right into the movie because that's a very interesting segue to more interesting facts because the movie opens with our opening credits with features an instrumental version of the opening number from the musical Ballad of Sweeney Todd. Did you know, Bailey, that originally the song was going to be in the movie in its entirety?
Interesting.
Yeah, they were originally planning to feature the song, and it would have featured Christopher Lee providing the vocals,
Hmm.
which I think I speak for everybody when I say that would have objectively be awesome.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I do understand why they just kept it as instrumentals, because the song is very theatrical in nature to the point where even in the lyrics, they reference the fact that it's a play.
Yeah.
So cutting that and just having it be instrumentals was the best call.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's also like a nice little fun Easter egg for those who are familiar with the musical before the movie. Because then they hear it and they recognize it. But it adds something different to the score as well, at kind of cutting the lyricism of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, it's a neat little way for that song to still be in the movie,
Yeah.
along with it making sense for a movie song. They would do the same thing years later for another Sondheim film adaptation, Into the Woods, where they kept Ever After, but it was simply just instrumentals because the lyrics were too theatrical. Another interesting notes about the opening title sequence is just how 2007 it looks just in general with the CGI.
Yes.
I kind of love it because of how like neat it looks for the time, but looking
Yeah.
back it's like, oh, it's kind of bad, especially the blood.
Yeah, but that also, I wonder if that, I mean, it probably wasn't super intentional, but in referring back to the show, it has famously always been portrayed by like a scarf as the blood. So having that like fake, that like really bad CGI blood being so fake that it's to me, it's a nice little reference back to the staging of how you would see it live.
Well, that was one of the main draws towards making a Sweeney Todd movie. Alan Rickman talked about this, and I believe even also Sondheim in some interviews, where the big main plus is actually having blood in
Yeah.
the movie and seeing all the blood coming out of the throats and all the gruesome ways that Mr. Todd will kill people.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, we are technically jumping a little bit ahead here, but I do think that, like, overall, the gore in this movie works really, really well because most of the kills are very, very simple. They're, with the exception of one or two, they're all just like simple, like throat slits. But the way that they spew the blood out from all of their necks are all very fun and over the top, and it is exactly what you would expect from the director of Sleepy Hollow.
Yes, for sure.
And I guess we've kind of been avoiding this name a little bit. So this is a Tim Burton movie. How familiar are you with Tim Burton's work?
I love Tim Burton's work. I was actually gonna say, I feel like the kind of cheesiness and over the topness of the gore, like we were just talking about, that's very Burton, like in its aspect of
Yeah.
like showing some realism, but then really just making it as dramatic as it can be.
Yeah, and and I mentioned Sleepy Hollow earlier because like you can say that like a lot of like that movie was just training for Sweeney Todd
Yeah.
because it's a very similar time period, and it also has some very over the top gore to the point where in that movie specifically the blood is like cartoonishly red,
Hmm.
almost pink to a sense,
Yeah.
but you still have a general just fun like spooky horror movie at the same time that you can take seriously if you want to, but it's also over the top in a way.
Yeah.
And now I do think that Sweeney Todd does take itself a little bit more seriously, and it's easier to take seriously than Sleepy Hollow to an extent.
Hmm.
And it does depend on how much you can take seriously musical numbers in that same aesthetic. But overall, I do think that they both do a very good job.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you.
Yeah. So moving right along, we got ourselves the opening number of No Place Like London. And it's where we immediately get to some of the more controversial aspects of this movie, and that is a lot of the singing voices. Many criticisms toward this movie, especially in more recent years, have been towards the singing voices of Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter specifically. I will state this, I don't know how many enemies that I will make saying this. I don't think that Depp's singing voice is that bad, like at all.
Yeah,
It,
I think, it's almost what you would expect from Sweeney Todd, with the exception, right, of seeing like the revival and that incredible, um, the incredible vocals there. I think if you're just looking at his character, you would expect it not to be so refined and perfect and like beautiful to the ear in the way that you would traditionally think so.
yeah, exactly. And I remember I've had a discussion with somebody once in the past on how with the singing performances in Sweeney Todd, the movie specifically, they fit the characters way more than the Broadway cast recordings do, because that's just the nature of Broadway. Like if you gotta sound beautiful or else get out.
Yeah.
But here in the movie, I definitely think that, well, like Johnny Depp's amateur singing, you could say, does not necessarily match the movie's Broadway origins, but it works for the character completely, and it matches the overall tone that the film is going for. And yeah, it's not, although I will say it's not exactly like perfect for the type of singing voice that they are going for with Todd in this movie. There are a couple of moments here and there, specifically in Epiphany, where I feel like Depp could have used a little bit more vocal coaching. Like, he's not awful, like downright. There are just several moments here that he just could have used a little bit of tweaking, just a little bit. Or
Yeah.
maybe a lot in Epiphany, but we'll get there.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying there. And I think that's also like a common gripe that I hear with movie musicals that are like based off of Broadway shows is that then they turn around and cast, like they do the stunt casting, like you kind of see on Broadway, but you reverse it and it's on screen, right? So you're hearing this like big, awesome title name that you're so excited to see on film, and then you see who you're casting, and you're like, oh, like I wonder if their vocals are going to be up to par. And I think that's just the nature of like adding, like bringing in a Hollywood aspect of musicals.
Yeah, and a lot of movie musicals, specifically ones that are based off of Broadway shows, they will do the mistake of doing one of two things. Just getting an actor who can't sing or a singer who can't act.
Mm-hmm.
And you need somebody who can do both. That's why the Wicked movies work so well, because almost the entirety of the cast can do both, at least musically, they work. And it's one of the things that annoys the crap out of me whenever I watched Guys and Dolls, the movie from the 50s, where they had Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra. You had an actor who couldn't sing and a singer who couldn't act. So, had
Yeah.
the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I think also like the Wicked movies, like you were saying, I think something that works really well with those is that you have a lot of Broadway vets coming in to fill in those roles, which is awesome. It's, merging two worlds. I think sometimes we think of Hollywood and Broadway, or like Hollywood and live theater as being two totally separate things, and they take different skill sets for sure. Trying to act to a huge crowd that's like however many hundreds of feet away from you versus, having a camera right up in your face. Like I understand that they take different skill sets, but it is nice to see, especially in these types of movies, these types of films, having the Broadway vets come in and, take up that space there.
Yeah, although I will say this, I don't necessarily mind if they get like a big name celebrity to like play a character, as long as one, their acting is good as the character, as it is the case in Sweeney Todd, to give it back on subject.
Yes.
Or two, if they have a bad singing voice, just dub them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if it's more realistic or whatever, like Todd Hooper wants to say. I care more about my eardrums surviving this hour and a half than realistic singing.
Yeah.
But anyways, I will say this. We also get an objectively no bullcrap, really good singing voice with Anthony, probably because he's not played by a celebrity.
Right. Yes. No, that, yeah, that's just something that you can't forget. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful voice.
Yeah, and he's played by the same guy who would go on to play Vecna in Stranger Things, which blew my mind when that fourth season of Stranger Things came out.
Mm-hmm.
like that they're the same guy. And I will admit, watching this movie this time around, I did definitely see a little bit of like the Vecna, when he's not in all the makeup through it, especially like during Joanna in
Hmm.
particular, where he is at his most distraught and
Hmm.
like angry even is like I can see where they you got a little bit of the Vecna in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is funny how, without even realizing it, technically two Stranger Things actors were both in Sweeney Todd, just in different points in time.
Yeah.
But anyways, we have our opening song for the movie, There's No Place in London. Sweeney Todd and Anthony come in sailing to London. Anthony is like, "Oh, London is beautiful." And Mr. Todd's like, "No, it sucks."
Mhm.
So, so a little backstory here. Mr. Todd was down on his luck and was basically almost dead. Anthony found him, put him back on his feet, and now they're in London. And Mr. Todd basically gives him a reason why he doesn't like London, giving him the big old backstory of this barber. Well, it's his backstory.
Yeah.
Barber, he had a wife and daughter, but this judge was like, "Hey, I like that wife. I want her to be mine." And so him and his little henchman, a little freaky guy, just knocks out Mr. Todd, who went by Benjamin Barker at this point, and kidnaps his wife Lucy and their daughter Joanna, and the story's just left it there. And
Yes.
so Barker, he's now going by Sweeney Todd, and decides to get the brilliant idea to move into his old place, where absolutely nobody will ever think that this guy who looks exactly like Benjamin Barker moving into Benjamin Barker's old house is Benjamin Barker.
Yes, of course.
So he goes there, and we get introduced to Mrs. Lovett, and get her first song, "The Worst Pies in London." Great review right there.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about Helena Bonham Carter's singing voice. You could say that her as Mrs. Lovett is the ultimate stunt casting because she only really got the role because she was dating Tim Burton at the time.
Right. Yeah.
But, according to her, Lovitz was a big dream role of her for many, many years.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think her acting is just fine in the film. She definitely looks the part.
Hmm.
She definitely nails off the manic that is Mrs. Lovitz, and also kind of the little tragic elements as well.
Right.
But with her more so than Deb, there were just several moments where I figured she was just way too pitchy in the
Hmm.
vocals, and it was like, ah, this is just bad on my ears.
Yeah. It um it always makes me wonder, like, um, like how much rehearsal went into this prior, right? Like, I know obviously, it's a dream role of yours. I'm sure you've been doing, working on the music for a little bit, but it just, yeah, makes me wonder, like, with the directors, the music directors on set, like how much time they spent on each thing.
Yeah, and there were also a lot of like moments where you could clearly see her vocal limitability. Like during A Little Priest, she's just straight up not singing any of the harmonies and just singing the melodies with Sweeney. And there were a couple moments, and I specifically wrote down during Wait, like I can't even listen to what she is singing because she is just so bad in the song.
Mm.
Like I've seen a couple people saying that like Epiphany is like their reason why they don't like Johnny Depp's singing voice in the movie.
Yeah.
I think that for me, Wait is the reason I don't like Carter's singing voice.
Yeah. No, I think that that's a very valid take and opinion there.
Yeah. But I will say this, I do think that her acting is very good in the film. I just wish that her singing was as good as her acting.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So the song happens, the very fun song, and eventually we get more exposition. Todd sees the old place, and then Mrs. Lovett tells him about his old wife and what happened to her. Basically, basically, she went to this party because she was being held captive by Judge Turpin. She was invited to this party. She was looking for Turpin, but then Turpin shows up, corners her, and then rapes her right there at the party, and everybody laughs. And our freakish little rat dude from Harry Potter just stands there and smiles. 'Cause-
Yeah, that is definitely one of the more disturbing aspects of this story is yeah, just the fact, the idea that somebody can hold so much power and sway over a group of people that, all he has to do is declare that he wants somebody and they belong to him all of a sudden, and that he can commit such a vile act. And everybody's just like, oh yeah, that's great. Haha, so funny.
Yeah, and that also just brings up like a great like overall message throughout the whole movie, and that is just like the like almost like authoritarianism that was like London in this point in time, because London because like London in that piece of history in that era, it sucked. Like just plain point and simple. There's a reason why Sweeney is not singing its praises at the beginning of the movie. London was not a good place to be. It actively smelt like sewage everywhere you walked, and it was especially a terrible time for women. Not that London is perfect right now, but like in that specific time of history where this movie takes place, it was awful. Like the people in charge were just taking using all their power to their personal benefits and just not being good.
Yeah,
So it definitely does showcase how things are bad and how people today like this do exist today. So
yeah,
they're just not as in your face and they're not as like prominent as like Judge Turpin is.
yes, yeah.
But anyways, after the song "Poor Thing," uh, Barker reveals himself as Benjamin Barker and is reunited with his old set of knives, and he officially declares himself as the loneliest man in the world by declaring them as his friends. And it's a very very beautiful song. I think that Johnny Depp does a very good job singing it, which is why I will always be on the pro Johnny Depp singing voice. And I feel like this is a great moment for us to talk about just how well I think this movie is directed, because I think throughout a lot of the musical numbers, not all of them, but a good bit of it, uh, Tim Burton does a very good job with the camera,
Hmm.
because at the very end of the song, where the Ballad of Sweeney Todd instrumental comes in, and the camera just zooms out from where Sweeney is, ah, it just gives me chills every time.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I just adore everything that Tim Burton does. I don't think I've ever seen a Tim Burton film that I didn't enjoy. And that is something like his cinematics, his eye for the way he sees the story and then lets us see that is just so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen some Tim Burton movies I didn't like, but this is one of the ones I have liked. We don't have to. Thankfully, we're not talking about Dumbo here today, so. But like, and also going back a little bit, it he also has some great moments with with the camera at the end of No Place Like London, where the camera keeps shifting during the end of it when the with the music and everything, with the visual effects and everything like that. I'm doing a bad job describing it, but it's great. It's great camera work. I think the one thing that I have a gripe with is that there are some songs where I feel like there could have been some more unique like camera angles or even choreography to better suit the music itself.
Yeah.
And the one that specifically pointed out to me was the ending of Joanna. Like like
Hmm.
the music ends with these big triumphant sound. You hear tons of horns and it's just amazing. Like just amazing to listen to the song. The vocals are fantastic, so is the instrumentation. But watching it in the movie, it's like, huh, okay. And it's because I think it's because the camera is just static. The camera is
Hmm.
just static at the end of the song. I feel like if maybe it just swooped up like at the very end and we get a nice little aerial shot, that way would have been a much more powerful ending to that song and that scene.
Yeah.
But that's just me. It still works. I just think it could have been better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, Joanna itself, perfect otherwise, you know?
Oh, it's incredible.
Jo- this is true. Like Joanna has become like my go-to audition song wherever I'm going to a new place where I don't know the people because one is perfect in my range. Two, it's just a pretty song in general and it is beautiful. And and the guy playing Anthony, I can't remember his name. I should know it.
Mhm.
He does an amazing job singing it. The it's broken up really, really well because in between like the verses, there is this little scene where he meets Turpin and he just sees how awful Turpin is. Like they literally threaten to kill him at one point if he ever speaks to Joanna. Which, speaking of Joanna, we almost forgot about Greenfinch and Nightingale. We almost forgot about her song. At least I did. Like she was also really, really good. Joanna as a character like, in Sweeney Todd does not have a lot to do. Like
Right. Yeah.
most of what she has is that one song, but it is a very sad song. Like you wouldn't think it's sad, like just going into it, but it really is just her longing to just not be in the situation she is and just comparing it to the birds and
Yeah.
how hey, this bird is trapped in a cage, but at least it can sing. But it
Yeah.
wonderful song. Love that. Uh, Joanna's wonderful song and the character, but I I do kind of wish that like Joanna had a little bit more to do in the story, but I guess that's just the fault of her just kind of being locked up for
Yeah.
most of it. But I feel like that can be like an interesting like I don't know if I want to see a whole other adaptation just to see this,
Mhm.
or maybe if like a future revival or I don't know, maybe some really good fanfic out there can explore it.
Yeah, no, I think like referring to another Sondheim, it serves the same purpose as Into the Woods, Rapunzel being in the tower the whole time, right? Like you see, um, that's the only place you see her because that's the only place she gets to go. And I think that it does, as much as I would love for that to be a bigger role and to have more in the story, I think it almost reminds you, like when you come back to her and you see her in the same place, you see that nothing's really changed. It kind of really like hammers home the fact that this is her life. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of exactly like Rapunzel and Into the Woods when you think about it, because yeah, they're two maidens known for having a beautiful voice, beautiful yellow hair, and they're trapped in a singular place by the villain of the story
Mhm.
for a good portion of the musical. So, yeah, good eye. But in between those two songs, we get Alms Alms, and we get introduced to this crazy old beggar woman who at this point is just delivering exposition to Antony, and there go the audience.
Mhm.
But we'll come back to her. We'll come back to her soon. Now we move on to the next scene. We're in the marketplace, and we get into our next song, uh, Spirelli's Miracle Elixir. Now, this is where one of my biggest issues with the music comes in. And first off, the kid playing Toby, he does a good job in the song. But there's a lot of gaps in the music where there's nobody singing. And for those of you unaware, in the Broadway show, those gaps were filled in with people singing. So, for reasons that I cannot fathom, in this movie they had the bright idea to cut all of the chorus elements from the songs, not just the entirety of Ballad of Sweeney Todd, but also specifically in God That's Good and this song. I don't understand this. I completely disagree with the change. It just makes those portions of the song feel empty in what is otherwise some very fast-paced numbers. And it just kind of makes it feel like this movie is ashamed of being a musical for half a second, which was very commonplace in this time frame of movie musicals.
Yeah. And again, it makes me wonder like what that rehearsal process looked like. Um, Again, I know it's different for live theater and film, but and I wonder if they just didn't want to go through the process of having to cast a chorus and an ensemble of people who could sing, right? Because, typically when you have background actors, it's like, hey, great, you're here for a day or two, and we're just going to hire somebody else. And so it makes me intrigued in that way, just to know, like, did we just want to cut corners here and not hire, extra people to be on set all the time so that we can have these choral moments? Yeah.
For me, it just makes it feel like this movie is ashamed of being a musical, which movies around this time were in a lot of ways. I especially think to Phantom of the Opera, where they went as far as having them speak some of the songs like completely.
Yeah.
But you know, it really is only in those few scenes where it's like, oh, they cut the chorus. I don't
Yeah.
know why they did that. Maybe it was to cut costs. Maybe they were ashamed of this being a musical. I don't know. But it's just something to think about, and I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. It's just one of those things that, yeah, it makes you feel kind of uncomfortable to like to just sit in the dead space.
But anyway, after the song, Spirelli himself shows up, and we are faced with the greatness of the color blue for the first time in this movie, and the majesty that is Sacha Baron Cohen. Every time I see this man, I smile. I I just want to see more of him every time I see him. I can't think of a single bad performance he's been in. He's been in bad movies, but like every time I see this guy, he just makes me happy. And this movie is certainly no exception. It's
Yeah.
probably my favorite performance of his. And he's had some good performances. But Yeah, I just always love how he always tries to push the envelope and just go crazy with his performances. And this is one of his more like milder performances, but he is a lot of fun nonetheless.
Yes.
And you know what? I will say this. His singing voice isn't that bad. You know, he did the contest pretty well, even if they brought the song an octave lower.
Right.
But, you know, it still works. His voice works. So, yeah, the contest happens. And basically, during the song, he challenges Sweeney Todd to a shaving off because he said that his elixir smelt like piss and is piss. So naturally, he isn't happy about that, which it probably is simply because, well, he says that his elixir can grow people's hair back, but we see that, like, Toby's long hair is just a wig, so
Yes.
that doesn't work. It most likely is just urine. But,
Yep.
but Sweeney Todd obviously wins the contest, probably because Spirelli was singing the whole time while Sweeney Todd was actually given the shave.
Yes.
Which, funny enough, is one of the only times the barber actually does a complete shave in this movie, because every other shave was just a murder.
It is interesting to see that he is actually good at his occupation. He just chooses to not be.
So that does also kind of lead us into the question on how there's not really much speculation around the mysterious Sweeney Todd barber shop. We're like, oh, everybody who's gone there has never come out. Maybe in like older adaptations or like the original Penny Dreadful story, it actually did have some like urban legends, like, oh, you don't want to go to Sweeney Todd, so it'll turn you into a pie or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, that scene happens, and eventually, and we move back to that little barber, the barber place, the barber shop, if you will. Lo and behold, Spirelli and Toby show up, and Spirelli recognizes Benjamin Barker, and it's at that point we learn that his accent is also fake, so just an all-around liar. And Todd beats the ever-loving life out of Spirelli. He grabs the tea kettle and just whams it in his face several times. Toby is downstairs, drinking some whiskey, because London this time they will give kids whiskey to make them sleep.
Yes.
To calm them down, numb their pains. We even see later that he's knocked out cold, and he just locks him in a trunk when Toby comes up to check. He's still alive, and so when Todd opens up the trunk, he slits his throat, and Spirelli is dead. And Mrs. Lovett steals his wallet. Love how, after brutally murdering the guy, might as well steal his money.
Hey, he's got no use for it.
Then we get one of the craziest darkly comedic scenes in the movie, where we see Turpin as the judge. He's being a judge, and he's sentencing somebody to death by hanging, and it's a little boy. This little ginger kid just crying. They're like, oh, if this man wasn't awful before, he certainly is by sentencing a child to death.
Yes.
It got so bad that even his little rat guy from Harry Potter was like, hey man, that was kind of screwed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, fun fact, this was not the only movie musical that actor did that year, because he was also in Enchanted.
Yes. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I keep forgetting the actor's name, but he's always a lovely sight whenever I see him because he's always intentionally so very grotesque and ugly and British. And he understands the assignment well, and he's great. He was great in Enchanted, doing two very different types of musicals in the same year. I bet was insane. And I think also his kind of his this brings us into My Lord, his song. He's not bad in it, we'll say, for just a little bit he sings. He's not bad. Again, this is what we've been talking about. It's not necessarily a Broadway voice, but it works for the character.
Right.
Specifically. But it's through the song where he gives Turpin the idea to go get a shave because Turpin confesses that he wants to marry Joanna because he sees through this little peephole that he had in the wall, which God only know what he does through that.
I know.
He learns that she is in contact with Anthony still. In fact, she even throws him a key, and Turpin wants to marry her to get her away from him. And also, he's just a sicko. But shocker of all shocks, Joanna was repulsed by this idea. And our little rat boy from Harry Potter was like, hey, maybe it's because you're ugly and you have stubble on your face. You should go to this barber I met a couple days ago. You know, he'll clean you right up.
Yeah.
I just love how that's the conclusion that they went to.
Right.
So he's at the barber. Turpin is there, face to face with Sweeney Todd. He doesn't recognize him, but Todd definitely recognizes him.
Yes.
He sits in the chair for a shave, and we get into the song "Pretty Women," which is it's a very interesting song because like these two people are going to go on in the movie to do very horrible things. They have already done some very horrible things, and they just sound so lovely together. They're singing about such simple things, simple joys in life, as just a mere distraction, As Todd's just trying to plot his next move, and it's just a lovely song altogether. I think the two mesh very well, but I do think that with this song in particular, Johnny Depp is doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Not just like performance-wise, but also just audio mixing-wise. Because there's a point where you can't even hear Alan Rickman singing.
Right.
Yeah, because Depp's vocals just completely overpower the incredibly low like bass notes that Alan Rickman is doing. And not as like a detriment to Alan Rickman's performance in the movie, but he is, if you're getting overpowered by Johnny Depp's singing voice, something is going up.
Yeah.
But anyways, the song comes to a very abrupt end when Anthony rushes in, and Turpin is like, hey, I know you, I'm gonna kill you, or something like that.
Yeah.
He doesn't. So Turpin rushes out. Anthony tries to tell Todd about what's going on with Joanna, but Todd tells him to get out of there. And this is when we get into Epiphany. And I am so torn on this one because it's a really good song, but I don't think that Johnny Depp does a good job singing it. But it's not like unlistenable. It's not hurting my ears. It's just that it could have been actually a really great, really powerful moment because all the right pieces are there. Because the song itself is good. The music sounds really, really good. The camera work and the directing is really, really good. Depp's vocals are just not on point.
Yeah.
Like, there are moments in the song where I think he sounds really, really good. Like, at the beginning, like, it's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end, where he's not singing the last note, he's just screaming it. I just think it would have been better if he just sung it straightforward instead of just doing the freaking, I don't even know how to describe it, just the Viking yells throughout half of it. I definitely wouldn't say that it's as bad as like Gerard Butler's Phantom of the Opera, but it's like the closest thing in the movie that comes to that.
Yeah.
Vocally speaking. You know, after that, we get into a much better number. We get a little priest. A little priest, you know, they're singing about how they're going to finally do something about the body, and they're going to kill all these people and turn them into pies.
Yeah.
Priests or anything like that. This is, although again, we do have Mrs. Lovitz just singing default to the melody instead of singing her harmonies, because that's not in Helena Bonham Carter's range.
Yeah.
But I actually have a very fun personal story about a little priest. So, several years ago, my university did a cabaret. It was during my freshman year. And one of the songs was A Little Priest. The cast of the cabaret did not just include, like, the students. Like, some of the faculty were also in it.
Yeah.
And there were two faculty that were singing A Little Priest. It was a husband and wife. And the wife, like, she could sing the song, like, perfectly fine. She was singing, like, all of, like, her harmonies, like, verbatim. But the guy singing Sweeney's part just did not try at all. He wasn't singing. He would just speak talking it the whole way through.
Yeah.
Which made me cringe so bad when I saw it, and definitely made Johnny Depp look like a Broadway superstar in comparison.
Yeah.
So that's why I will always defend Johnny Depp's Sweeney Todd. Be like, hey, you could have had that.
Charity on the world, my pets.
Yes, I know, my lord.
We'll take the customers that we can get.
I know, my lord.
We'll not discriminate great from small. No, we'll serve anyone, meaning anyone, and to anyone at all.
Could have been worse.
I think the worst part is he made her sound bad in comparison because she was just singing the harmonies with no melody attached. So.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, after that is when things get a little bit kooky, because this is where the intermission would be in the musical, and so things naturally have to get darker by Act 2.
Yeah.
Joanna's going to the ward, guys! She's being put in an asylum because she wouldn't marry a man, and that just goes to show just how much London sucked for women back then, because, alright, you're going to speak up, you don't want to do things my way, I'm going to put you in the asylum. If this movie was made today, it'd be considered woke garbage, but that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, that happens, and Anthony witnesses this, and he, during the course of the Joanna reprise, he just follows the coach through its entirety up to the exact, like, asylum where Joanna is being captured. Like, it takes the course of this entire, like, 5-minute song.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, here she is. Although I will say this, the song, like, some of the alternate titles for, like, the Joanna reprise have been, like, Joanna Quartet. At least, like, in the movie version, it's not a quartet because there's only 3 people singing it.
Yes.
It is a quartet on Broadway because Joanna also sings it. But in the movie, it's just Anthony, Sweeney, and the beggar woman singing. Not a quartet. So I don't know why we still call it, at least in the movie, Joanna quartet.
Right.
I'm just saying. But it's still a really good song regardless. I mean, Anthony's vocals are just as beautiful as ever. We get the wonderful sequence of Todd just murdering all the people for the meat pies and just seeing all the different types of set pieces and the beggar woman piecing together the beggar woman of all characters piecing together that something is foul.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an all-around beautiful moment and a very interesting way to showcase the progression of your story through song in your movie. And that segues immediately to God That's Good, where again we get the whole chorus problem. Where it's especially noticeable in this song because they cut the reason the song is called that.
Yeah.
They cut the title of the song in the song. You cut God That's Good in God That's Good. Why do you do that?
Yeah, it's interesting choices were definitely taken and made within the music.
I definitely do think that this is, of all the songs, like the one that could have benefited more by that chorus, and two, some much faster like editing and staging and even a little bit of choreography, if you will.
Yeah.
Because there's barely any choreography in this, which is fine. Like the grand majority of the songs do not call for that, but I feel like God That's Good is one of the only songs in this movie that does call for that, and they just don't do it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you there.
It doesn't have to be anything big or spectacular. It's just like something that like matches the song you're using.
Yeah.
Anthony shows up back at Todd's place and it's like, hey, they're holding Joanna captive, and Todd gives him the wonderful idea to disguise himself as a wig maker. To like go in there and be like, I'm gonna collect the hairs for my wig.
Yep.
Which just goes to show you just how screwed up London is at that point in time, and how they treat those women in the asylum.
Yeah.
Because I bet a fine, crisp $2 bill that none of the women in that asylum have an actual valid reason for being there.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, that was just like the time that women could get committed for anything. Like if a man said anything, they're like, hey, I want to get her off my hands. They could say anything and there she goes.
So Toby is also told to go run some errands, and specifically with Toby interacting with Todd, I always get the nerve to like, the kids should not be there. And like just throughout the whole movie, really, it's from this point forward, like Toby is not in a place where he should be ever. It's like,
yeah.
Get this kid out of here.
Yeah.
Because we know things are going to end up bad for him because they considered killing him earlier in the movie when they killed Spirelli. But anyways, to something lighter. And I do mean literally something lighter because it's the only scene in the movie that has some color, very intentionally so, and that's the by the sea sequence. Like, they're all having a little picnic. And Mrs. Lovett delivers a very tragic song in a way that we'll only figure out is tragic later, on her ideal life with Todd and Toby. Once all this murder stuff is done, they move out by the sea and they get their own place. They get married and they just have a wonderful time. There's actual color in their lives.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful song by itself, but it's all the more tragic when put together with the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this scene, it's just again, like all of the different elements coming together, and then you're starting to piece together more because there, as we've been saying, there's so many different layers of the story that happen that different characters piece together different things at different times. And so as the viewer watching more of it come together, and then, we're getting to know more about Mrs. Lovett, more about what she desires. Yeah, it does become a tragedy.
And speaking of tragedies, that brings us to the next song, which is after Toby runs his errands. He's back there at their place, and we get to see more of the relationship that Toby and Lovitz have built up. And we get into the song "Not While I'm Around," which is sung beautifully by Toby, by the way. Like, again, the kid's not a celebrity, so he has an objectively really good singing voice.
Yeah.
So he basically says, "Hey, there's some evil things afoot, but I'm gonna protect you, Mum." And he starts calling her Mum at this point. So it's like, oh, poor kid. And he has no idea, especially when he sees the purse of Spirelli being held by Mrs. Lovett. And he starts to put together that Todd is the sole evil one. But Lovett is like, no, there's nothing to worry. But, oh, there goes my dog. She's at it again. But yeah, the song is wonderful. And I guess as a way to get rid of the kid entirely, Lovett puts him to work in the cellar, working on the pies and everything like that. The kid is none the wiser at the moment because he still trusts Mrs. Lovett, but when Lovett closes the door and locks him in there, we see tears going down her face, which does show you that she genuinely really cares about Toby, but she has to do this because her love for Sweeney Todd conquers her love for Toby in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it reminds us that, like, even though they're doing terrible things, that they are human. I am of the opinion that the evil in this show, like, it's not all consuming of their characters. Like, it definitely, they're still human in them, and that's just one of those moments that you get reminded of it.
And that also goes back to why Todd is doing all the evil things, and it is essentially to avenge the death of his wife and daughter. But speaking of the daughter, we get to see her rescue, and Anthony disguises himself as the wig maker, and he was successfully able to get Joanna back, and all of the blondes just wreak havoc on the guy in charge. I like to believe they killed him.
Right.
But probably not. Hopefully, yes. And this is when we get into the behemoth that is the final scene, which is a reprise of just about every single song in the show, in the movie. This is where we see our little rat boy from Harry Potter get killed. He dead. His head cracks like a melon. And Toby sees this after he takes a bite out of a pie and pulls out a big old toe. He pulls out a toe.
Yeah.
And then he hides from Sweeney Todd and Lovett as they are trying to kill him. As Lovett is very ironically singing a reprise of "Nothing's Gonna Harm You."
Yes. Ugh.
But meanwhile, upstairs, Anthony makes it with Joanna, and Anthony leaves the movie so he can go fetch a coach. We never see Anthony again. But then Joanna hears the beggar woman enter as she was looking at pictures of herself as a baby. She hides. The beggar woman sees nothing as she's singing frantically. But then Todd comes in, wondering what she's doing in here. But the beggar woman says that she recognizes him. He kills her. Then, lo and behold, here comes Turpin. Turpin's like, hey, where's Joanna? Todd's like, I don't know, want to shave? Turpin sits in the chair. He recognizes Barker. And then we get one of the coolest kills in the movie, where he just stabs the ever-loving crap out of Turpin, and blood just goes everywhere.
Yes.
Easily the goriest kill, which, as someone who watches a lot of horror movies, I do appreciate a good gory kill.
Yeah.
And so Turpin's goes down. Todd's about to put his knives to rest until he sees Joanna, who is dressed as a lad, so she's not recognizable. Pulls her out, almost kills her until he hears Lovett screaming. So he rushes off to see that Turpin is still alive, and so before he passes out. But then when Todd gets down and they open up the fire, he recognizes the beggar woman as his wife Lucy.
Yes.
Who never died up until this moment. When she poisoned herself after the ball, it did not kill her. It just left her very mentally ill, and she's just been roaming the streets ever since. So, yeah, Todd just killed his wife, and Lovitz knew she was alive the whole time and didn't tell him.
This final scene, it's just, as you're saying, like all the chaos that's unfolding here. It's the one that keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. You know, like I was saying earlier, we're watching in the latter half of this movie, we're watching the characters start to put things together, and in this final sequence, everything is being brought together. We as the audience are making all of those last connections, and there's just no rest.
Exactly. So, like when they get into the replies of a little priest, and they're just dancing together, and then Todd just throws Lovett into the fire, and she's just screaming, burning alive. This is insane, this is crazy. But then it gets all quiet when Todd grabs Lucy and is mourning her, and then Toby shows up, and Todd just accepts his fate as he brings his head up for Toby to slit his throat. Tragic and beautiful, and it just fully represents what Sweeney Todd is. It just, everything about this movie that works fully comes together into that final scene, and it's just absolutely phenomenal in every way. So, final verdict, Bailey. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street?
Oh, it's easily a 4.5. It's definitely, it's one of my favorite movies. It's hard to beat.
Yeah, I would have to fully agree with you. This is also definitely one of my favorite movies. I watched it way too many times. There's going to be many, many more viewings in the future, especially once Halloween comes around. This is a 4.5 in my book, hands down. But anyway, guys, that will be it for this week's episode of Mooncasting. Bailey, thank you so much for coming back onto the show, and thank you so much for making this one of your first dibs.
Yes, thank you so much.
Do you have anything you would like to plug?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Bailey Nicole Dances. I don't post a lot there, but when I do, sometimes it's good.
And please be sure to check out my stuff. Check out the YouTube channel for this show and the Spotify pages. And check out my other channels, Mr. Johnson and Weird TV. And please be sure to join us next week for an episode of The Happiest Cast on Earth, where we shall be taking a look at the Disney Plus documentary, The Beach Boys. But until then, I will see you later. Bye!